Hello guys, this is Mike from Deathless Gaming. Tonight we're going to be looking at the pros, the flaws, the cons. We are going to be killing German tanks.
Someday I'll let you apologize, and I'll accept your apology, and tell you just exactly what I see. I live my life like a guillotine. Hey, I made out.
Alright, so let's start with your first line. This is going to be probably your worst line of the game, because the first Panzer, always sucks. It's always horrible, but you can use it. So let's look at the flaws of this tank. Really, why does this tank suck so bad? So as you can see, it's kind of in a square, and a flat armor in War Thunder is easier to penetrate. So it really doesn't help it that it's got this square lining, which is perfectly a shoot anywhere to blow up your tank. Now, shooting anywhere doesn't always work in War Thunder, so let's go over some specifics with X-ray. You want to aim for the ammo racks always, and you want to aim where you can hit the crew members, and the fuel tanks as well to set it on fire to distract them and while you get off other shots. So that's where you want to be hitting and penetrating, and it's really easy to do that with this tank. So this tank is basically a turkey shoot if you're encountering it. Alright, for the Germans out there, let's go over the pros. Like I said, it's a turkey shoot. Do not try to play this like a Russian. Try to maintain your speed and try to flank. So what does that mean? You have high reload speed and high vehicle speed. Use that. Figure out where the main battle line is on the minimap. Go around hills, spots where normal tanks won't be able to go to, and then get a flanking position. So take tanks on from the side. And this actually works very well for your lower tier. You know why? Because you've got high reload speed. So once you shoot them and you start to disable, they are turning their turret, but you can hit them again. And then by your third shot, usually you've taken out the tank. So as long as you've got that first hit from the side, this can actually be an effective tank. But you have to know how to flank, and you have to use your effective skill. Sorry I didn't show any gameplay, but I'll be going on with more gameplay when I go over the pros for these next tanks. And let's skip ahead now to the Panther 3. So this tank, oh my gosh, it is good. You're starting to get, the frontal side of this tank is starting to develop. So as you can see, the front of your turret actually is probably a bad place to shoot bullets since the armor there is fairly good. However the bottom half of your tank in the front is still extremely vulnerable due to that flat strip. So do not take tanks on front on with this tank. You're still using that flanking principle. So ammo racks, quick X-ray in the same places as the other early tank, and crew members in the same places, so you know where to aim, you know where to shoot, you know where to kill. So this tank is still very easy to kill. Just avoid its reload speed. Try not to get hit first. If you're Russian, just take like one shot, and then you dish out one shot, and he's going to be dead. So just try to take this tank more of a head-on position, and it's extremely weak from the side, so if you can get it from the side, that'll kill it. So again, this is another turkey shoot tank. However though, for those Germans out there, if you know how to use this tank, it's not going to be a turkey shoot tank. So what do you do with this? Again, you're having the same problems of that early tier. But this is where it gets good. You can now take advantage of its mobility and reload speed in urban combat. So, in urban places, find where that main battle line is, go really fast, try to watch your back always again when you're flanking, that's a danger, but if you come at tanks that are in combat with your friendly tanks, from the side, they will not notice you with that first hit, and then by that second hit, you're really doing damage, and by the third hit, they're going to be dead. And that sounds 3 hits, oh my gosh, that's a lot for a tank. Well, with your reload speed, that's still actually practically like 10 or 15 seconds. That's not that much. So, again, attack, hit hard from the sides, and hit first. You cannot just sit there like a Russian, take one hit, and then fire back. You have to come out from the side, dish multiple hits, and they're going to be dead, and you can actually go on very big kill streaks. Let's introduce another tank, the Stew line. I'm not going to pronounce it fully because that's a pain in the ass. So, let's call this line the stew. It's a flat tank. This is very easy to shoot. Like, the weaknesses on this tank are everywhere. Specifically on the left-hand side with that big-ass ammo rack. I don't know why they put so much ammo there, but that is the biggest flaw for any tank in the entire game. I mean, one shot, one tiny penetration, and basically all your ammo blows up. So how do you use this effectively? For those Germans out there, this does seem like a death trap, doesn't it? Well, you use this at range, and at your tier, actually the Russians are still figuring out that they're extremely good at range. They are starting to be more at range, but they haven't fully figured it out yet. So take advantage of that. You've got a larger shell that can penetrate most tanks of your tiny tier side, a sort of long reload speed, but your tank is really well at range, as you can see in the gameplay. Let's move on. This is the line right before the Tiger. So you've started to succeed with German tanks. You're feeling this isn't that bad. They may be farm boxes, but they're effective farm boxes when they're flanking. So as you can see, this last Panzer over here is finally starting to address some of its issues. The turret, which is usually a very vulnerable spot, now has metal plates. They don't do much, but they help a little. And the side where the tracks are, where you got that flat side of the tank, now has metal plates. Again, this doesn't do much, but it helps address. So one of the things is, you are now one of the few tanks in the game at your tier that still has its mobility and its reload speed. And as you can see, I can take like one hit now as a German, which is really rare because mostly you can't take that in this gameplay. But now, I can dish out multiple hits really fast. So if they miss on that first hit, I punish them for it, and I kill them all, as you can see in the gameplay right here. So keep in mind, weaknesses are in the same spot, but it's slightly improved so you can just survive that first hit. Now by that second hit, you're dead. And again, you can actually use the same weaknesses for your lower tanks on this tank again, because ammo rack's in the same spot and everything. But now, on the pros in this tank, you're really starting to go up. So use that mobility. Take advantage of that rapid fire and destroy the other tanks. Attack from the side. Never aim for the front of a tank usually, unless you're attacking a German, and you will crush with this tank. Let's look at the Panther 4, I think, or Panzer 4. I'll have to look that up. Excuse me for my stupidity. This is where you got horrible armor, pretty much, as you can see. Same configuration as actually a first tier tank. You can pretty much penetrate anywhere. But what's the difference? The gun. And you still have, surprisingly though, the mobility speed. You still have that mobility speed, but your gun's a little bit longer on reload speed. So what can you do with this tank? You can use this for close quarters, even though you have a higher reload speed by flanking, and it's coming from tanks at the side, as you can see in the gameplay. But this time you're doing one shot, one kill, and now you're really getting effective, and this is where you go on the really big kill streak. You can also use this tank at range a lot more, which is really good, because not only is it good at speed, but it's good at range. So it kind of fits. This is probably one of the best tanks for this tier in the game, because it kind of fits this speed, urban combat fighting, and yet it can still hold its own at range. So this is a pretty good tank. Now let's look at the stew line. They try to address the armor flaws in it, but really, this line kind of becomes unplayable. I know that sounds pretty harsh, and I'm sure there are pros in the forums and stuff that can tell you how to use it, but for me, this is just almost impossible to use. That big-ass ammo rack is way too much of a flaw when you're going up tanks with high penetration, and it really uses its niche of longer range, since pretty much now almost everything is longer range and can hold its own at range. So, you know, I don't use this anymore, and as you can see, I've stopped researching it, because I've killed the tanks ahead in the researching side very easily, and so I know the flaws are still there. And, you know, I've just dropped it at this point. Alright, so you've worked hard. you've managed to conquer your vulnerabilities. If you're looking for weaknesses in German tanks, they're still obviously there, and they're still very easily there. But for that German researcher, you've now reached your ultimate goal, the Tiger H1. This is a beautiful tank. But first, let's go over the cons. So, ammo rack still on the side. You're starting to lose that configuration you got with your first tank, but it's still got that really big weakness on the side armor. And actually, sometimes with the frontal armor, I've seen a little bit more resistance with shells penetrating, but you still got that same weakness again with frontal armor, so you try not to use your front of the tank to go head on with tanks. However, when this tank does not have a big crew upgrade, this is actually another turkey shoot tank, and any German using this will suck with it, and they will die repeatedly, and it'll be hell for them. So this is one of those farm tanks for the upper BRs for IS-1s and stuff, but that's going to change very quickly once you apply skill to this tank. So first you start upgrading crew skills on this tank after you manage to get a few kills even though you're getting farmed. So for the German Pro, how are you going to conquer this tank? Very simple. Distance and something new called angled armor. Now, angled armor really doesn't work as well with the lower tier tanks, but for this one, it works great. So instead, you can now take tanks on head on, face to face, but at a huge distance. So like 0.6 kilometers out, you can, or 0.8 kilometers out, even 1 kilometer out, you can now kill tanks effectively. But how are you going to take these tanks head on? Here's how you're going to do it. Angle your armor. So instead of actually taking the tank head on, you're going to kind of slant it so that when the hit comes in, it's at range so that momentum will kind of bounce off the tank. Now here's one really big flaw in this tank. Never take this in urban combat fighting. It sucks. And here's a little bit of gameplay that I show you where I get blown up and die a horrible death. This thing does not work in urban combat fighting. But let's look at this tank with range. This is some Tiger H1 and Tiger E gameplay. This destroys at range. Like literally, it is crushing at range. This tank is beautiful. I want to cry when I play this thing at range. Okay, that's how good it is. So let's keep those. When you're in the direction, general direction, just angle your armor and then get the first shot as usual with German tanks. It's always good to get the first shot in a tank battle. So always try to get that first shot so you have that up momentum. Unless you miss, in that case you're screwed. And the Tiger E, same weaknesses, same flaws, improved in other parts. It's more of a big, it's really better, but it's not necessarily still the same weaknesses there, same configuration. So for the cons, it's still there, but it's just minor details like slightly improved speed, slightly improved reload and stuff. So not that big. Now let's look at the final tank, the Panther D. Panther D. This is the one of the few German tanks where this can do, I'd say, medium range, close range. I mean, it can do long range sometimes. I mean, in upper tier, all tanks can do long range. Long range is no question for any of them. But this tank can actually, literally at close range, go front on with tanks. So it's actually built more of like a Russian, where you fire the round at it, and it bounces off because of the angle. So you always have to keep this tank pointed forward towards the enemy. So for enemies, how do you kill this tank? Yes, you're going to realize it's horrible to go against this tank, but just go find weak spots on the side. Sometimes aim for the turret ring like you would with a Russian, and that will start to make it go kaplooey. But the side really is fragile and can be killed quite easily if you attack it from the side. So this is a very weird tank. It kind of feels like a Russian. So again, this is a pretty good tank. Just use it from the side and you'll start to win with it. Alright, that's pretty much it, guys. I've given you a pretty long video on how to take advantage of the German tier main battle tier. I'm going to leave you with some gameplay. This is Mike from Deathless Gaming signing off. Remember to flank. Oh, and also remember to fire at first and that kind of stuff if you want to succeed with trims and all that beautiful stuff. Bye.